Actual massages and rub-downs occurred under the direction of Jensen to enhance athletic ability.
All of our clients are being deposed. They're all being asked intimate and personal details. It re-traumatizes victims, and that's the current state of the law.
However, Mercer says it should stay that way and instead focus on Montana's criminal statute of limitation laws.
And so we're busy trying to work through those issues and figure out, what should we do with the statute of limitations on the civil side and the criminal side.
Representative Bill Mercer does not serve on the House Judiciary Committee where this bill is being introduced and where it's being heard. A bill to abolish Montana's death penalty died in committee. Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee voted to table or kill the bill 2 days after a hearing was heard on it. The bill went down in an 11-8 vote, with all Democrats voting to keep it alive. The bill would have abolished the death penalty and replaced it with a life sentence in prison. Now, the sponsor of the bill told MTN News that he has no plans to try and revive that bill. 2 people currently sit on Montana's death row, including one who was sentenced nearly 36 years ago. Work continues on the first draft of the state's 2-year budget. Today, a 9-member panel wrapped up its initial work on the biggest part of the budget. Health and Human Services accounts for 40% of the state's overall budget, more than $4 billion over the next 2 years. Well, today the House Senate subcommittee approved an increase and restored cuts made during the past year. Perhaps the most significant change, though, is more money for nursing homes, assisted living centers, and other private providers. Most of the votes were bipartisan.
I don't think that the provider rates are high enough when you're talking at, starting somebody at $12 an hour to work with an autistic teenager who's my size, and they can make that same money at McDonald's.
The start today was excellent as far as I'm concerned. We redirected money to the community for particular populations, senior citizens, people with Alzheimer's, dementia, children who have physical disabilities or who are suffering from mental illness. We're trying to bolster or restore the community services.
The next stop for the budget is the full House Appropriations Committee. That's going to happen next month. Representatives from Montana's resort communities were in Helena today to ask the legislature to let them increase the resort tax to pay for infrastructure needs. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian looks at why they say the additional tax is needed.
Leaders from 10 resort communities around Montana say it's a challenge to pay for the impacts they see from an annual influx of tourists.
You got 1,300 people trying to provide services for, 10, 12, 14,000 people a night.
You can't tax our real estate enough to pay for it. It can't be done.
The state allows those communities to make up some of the difference through the resort tax. It's a tax of up to 3% on things like hotels, restaurants, and gifts. Now, resort communities are asking for the option to add an additional 1% tax specifically to pay for infrastructure. Senate Bill 241, sponsored by Republican Senator Jeff Wellborn of Dillon, would let voters in those communities decide whether to add the additional amount. Resort tax revenue now goes toward a variety of uses. Leaders say this increase would help them pay for large, expensive projects like water and sewer upgrades. Big Sky Resort area leaders say they are looking at updating their wastewater treatment plant. Currently, treated water has to be stored throughout the winter because it can only be used for irrigation.
We have to store a year's worth of treated effluent before we can start disposing of it.
West Yellowstone's town manager said the limits of their water and sewer systems are holding up the community's growth.
These are realistic projects. These have realistic costs. This is not pie in the sky to say, hey, look, we've got all these infrastructure. These are serious infrastructure needs that we have to deal with now.
Community leaders said this bill could give them another important tool to meet their infrastructure needs.
We have to do more to welcome our guests to Montana.
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
All right, and it wasn't the only hearing for a bill on the resort tax. A Whitefish Democrat also introduced a bill to allow communities to introduce their own resort tax. The state's current resort communities, these are all of them: West Yellowstone, Big Sky, Gardner, Cook City, Virginia City, Whitefish, St. Regis, Red Lodge, Wolf Creek, and Craig. A bill paving the way for the state to become an investment partner in large economic development efforts such as the One Big Sky project in Billings is taking shape, but it's not formally introduced yet. Billings Senator Roger Webb says what started as a 6-page bill draft is now 42 pages long, and it's not even done yet. Webb told us this week that 5 Montana communities expressed an interest in the bill. It requires $300 million in private investment to trigger an infusion of $125 million in state dollars. Webb said the bill has the potential to spark billions of dollars in economic development for the state.
It has the potential, it has the capability of generating billions of dollars. I mean, can you imagine 5 of these projects going at once? That's potentially $5 billion. And our state budget's only 10. But this has a 20, 30, 40-year impact that nothing else has.
In addition to the Billings one, other communities that have projects that could benefit from Webb's bill include Bozeman, Missoula, Big Sky, and Polson. And since the One Big Sky bill is considered a revenue measure, it needs to be formally introduced by the 60th legislative day, which gives Webb slightly more than 3 weeks to get all of those details worked out. Now, the state of Montana is getting just a little bit closer to getting an official state rock and roll song.
For goodness sake, I got the hippy shake.
That is the song right there, the Hippy Shake. It was famously recorded by the Beatles, but was originally written and recorded by Billings native Chan Romero back in 1959. The bill passed out of committee. Lon Fott, whose late father Larry operated the Billings studio where Romero first recorded the song, brought in that original reel-to-reel demo for lawmakers so that they could take a listen to it.
It's a piece of Montana history. You know, my dad is a Montana native. He grew up in Lodge Grass and then moved to Billings when he was 18, where he spent his entire life. We're trying to, you know, carry on my dad's legacy.
The bill must fully pass the House and Senate before making its way to the governor's desk. A broken leg meant a backcountry rescue for a Minnesota man who crashed his snowmobile near West Yellowstone. It happened last night in the Cabin Creek area, about 12 miles north of West Yellowstone. Search and rescue say the 44-year-old man crashed his snowmobile. Rescuers located him, though, in a very steep canyon. They managed to get him into a toboggan and haul him to a spot where a helicopter could land. He was then taken to Bozeman for treatment. A Montana firefighting community is mourning the loss of one of their own tonight. Great Falls firefighter Jason Baker lost his 2-year battle with cancer early this morning. Their 45-year-old was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer back in October of 2016. Jason used his illness as a platform to promote health and safety for firefighters across the state. He retired, though, from Great Falls Fire Rescue at the end of last year. Well, still to come on tonight's MTM 9 o'clock news. They often say bad things strike in threes, but the number 3 has this Montana rancher in a great mood. We'll explain that coming up. And Bob McGuire joins us to deliver, of course, that statewide weather forecast. It's all coming up right after the break.